Most people are terrified of losing everything. Robert had already lost it, and he was still standing. His name was Robert, 42 years old, and on a Tuesday morning in October, he walked into a lawyer's office and signed the paperwork that officially ended everything he had built for 15 years. Bankruptcy. Chapter 7. The house was gone. The cars were gone. The business was gone. The savings were gone. The reputation was going. Robert sat in that office and felt something he hadn't expected. Not shame, not anger, just quiet, like the silence after a very long storm. Robert had started his first company at 27, a small logistics firm. Nothing glamorous, but it worked. By 35, he had 40 employees, 3 warehouses, contracts with major retailers, a house in the suburbs, 2 cars in the driveway. He had built it from nothing, and he was proud of it. Then the market shifted. A major client pulled out, without warning, without explanation. They found a cheaper option overseas. Robert lost 40% of his revenue. Overnight, he tried to recover. He took loans. He cut costs. He worked 7 days a week for 2 years straight. But the math never worked out. The loans became unpayable. The suppliers stopped extending credit. The employees started leaving, one by one, until one morning, Robert arrived at the warehouse and realized he was the only one left. He locked the door for the last time and drove home in silence. His wife, Sarah, was waiting in the kitchen. She didn't say anything. She just made him coffee. That small gesture broke him more than the bankruptcy ever could. He sat at the kitchen table and cried. For the first time in 15 years, he cried for the employees who had trusted him. He cried for the clients who had believed in him. He cried for the version of himself that had been so certain. He knew what he was doing, and when the crying stopped, he felt empty. But it was a different kind of empty. Not hollow, clean, like a room that had been stripped of everything and was waiting to become something new. The next 3 months were the hardest of his life. He moved into a rental apartment with Sarah and their daughter Emma, who was 9 years old and didn't fully understand what had happened, but understood that her father wasn't sleeping. Robert spent those months applying for jobs, something he hadn't done in 15 years. His resume looked strange. Founder, CEO, 15 years of self-employment, followed by bankruptcy. Some companies didn't call back. Some called and then went silent. After they did their background check, Robert understood. He would have done the same. He took a consulting job at a fraction of what he used to earn. He drove a car that cost less than his old monthly lunch budget. He stopped going to the places where people knew him, not from shame, from necessity, but also a little from shame. 6 months in, Robert was sitting at his desk, at his consulting job, helping another company solve a logistics problem. And he realized something. He was solving it in 20 minutes. Something that had taken their team 3 weeks. He sat back and thought, I still know how to do this. He hadn't lost his knowledge. He hadn't lost his experience. He hadn't lost his ability to see problems and find solutions. He had lost money. He had lost assets. He had lost a company. But he had kept the most valuable thing, what he knew. That night, he told Sarah, I want to try again. Sarah looked at him for a long moment. She said, I know. Not I support you. Not are you sure. Just, I know. Because she had known. Before he did, Robert started his second company from a spare bedroom with a laptop and $3,000 that Sarah had saved without telling him. This time, he did everything differently. No loans, no investors, no big moves. Just one client at a time, one problem solved at a time, $1 earned at a time. He was slower, more careful, more honest with himself about what he knew and what he didn't. Year 1, he made enough to cover their rent. Year 2, he hired his first employee, a young woman named Claire, who reminded him of himself. At 27, year 3, the company crossed $1 million in revenue. Robert was 45. He didn't celebrate. Not publicly, not with a party. He came home, helped Emma with her homework, made dinner with Sarah, and after Emma went to bed, he sat on the back porch with a glass of water and just sat there, thinking about the version of himself who had cried at the kitchen table 3 years ago. He didn't feel like a different person. He felt like the same person who had finally learned something he couldn't have learned any other way. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the path. The question is never, did you fall? The question is, what did you learn while you were down? Robert learned that he had been building for the wrong reasons, for the house, for the cars, for the image. The second time, he built because he loved solving the problem. That was the only difference. And somehow, it made all the difference. So let me ask you something. Is there something in your life right now that feels like it's falling apart? A business, a career, a plan that isn't working the way you expected? Because sometimes the fall is not the punishment. It's the education. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to get back up with a little more knowledge than you had before you fell. This is Narrathex, where the story is the code, the lesson is the key. Subscribe and never miss another story.